This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this.
Welcome back, everybody, to the X-Cast. As ever, the truth is in here. I'm your host today, Carl Sweeney, and thank you very much for joining me for this special Patron Roundtable, in which the topic is ranking the seasons. So we're going to go from our least favourite seasons up to our favourite. And I'm joined by three guests for this episode. So Katie Doe, first of all. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Carl. How are you?
I'm good. How long has it been since we spoke? Is it Fight the Future Minute, or was it more recently? I can't quite remember.
I think it might have been I've done other things since then, but I think it was the minutes for us.
I remember doing a bit of trivia with you on that on those recordings. Nice to talk to you again. And we're also joined by Deana Ferreri. Hi, Deana.
Hi, Carl.
I think we're recording for the first time, which is good fun. So, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good.
And last but not least, so we've got actually quite a transnational podcast, I think, today, haven't we? Because I'm in the UK. Katie and Deana are, of course, in America, and we're going over to Australia to say hi to Jessica Miskelly. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, I'm the Ocker presence this morning.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to talk to you. So, Jessica, did you enjoy the recent cricket series between England and Australia? Did you have a good time?
I did, but it was a bit one-sided, didn't you think?
I did think that, yeah. I think England didn't do very well at all. Anyway, nice to talk to you. We won't dwell on that, I don't think. We don't think we need to do that. Okay, so we're going to rank the seasons. I thought this could be a nice, fun topic. I think the thing is with the X-Files, nobody ever agrees on anything. So it should be a healthy debate, hopefully. So what, the task has been, what criteria did I set? I just sort of said, rank them in order of greatness, didn't I? And I sort of left that open to interpretation. So I don't know how everybody's made their lists. So Katie, what was your process here? What did you do to make? Was it easy? Did it come together quickly?
Some parts were easy. Drilling down into some other parts were not. But I knew what my first choice was, and I'm glad we did this because now I have the math to prove it that it is my first choice.
So what are the criteria? You got some numbers to back it up, have you?
So I did. Ranked each episode in each season and then averaged that out. So that was kind of like the basic. But what I did was, I call it like the X factor. So it's like, I counted the number of episodes in each season that I just can't be without. So that was kind of like my gut reaction. So I have that list, which was not that surprising. And then I drilled down for a few more. I did one about like your rewatchability, which not necessarily the best episodes, but the ones that I like to rewatch the most. So that was a little bit different.
I think you've put in a lot more effort than I have. It sounds like.
Deana inspired me too.
I just got a piece of paper. I wrote a number 1 in the middle of the paper, season 1. And I thought, would season 2 be above that or below it? And just filled it in that way. So I didn't go into like looking at ranking the episodes within each season, things like that. So Deana, the same methodology for you or similar to Katie?
Somewhat similar. So I made a just sort of initial list just off the top of my head. What are my favorites? And like the top 2 were easy, the bottom 2 were easy, and then the middle was kind of hard. So I actually went through and made a spreadsheet of all of the episodes, and I made up a 1 to 5 ranking system with like very defined criteria, but not completely objective, like subjective. Like 5 is like either it's like consensus, really, really good episode, or it's one of my favorites, even if it's not like objectively one of the best. So sort of like that. And then I went through and I did a mythology average for each season, a monster of the week average for each season, and then a overall average for each season to see how it matched up. And it was pretty close to what I thought. I mean, it doesn't really capture everything, the individual episodes. It's like the sum being more than the whole, with the the whole more than the sum of its parts. But yeah, it was pretty close.
So Jessica, what about you? Did you have a convoluted method of doing this too, or what did you do?
I did. I love it that we've all gone the convoluted method. So yeah, I started making a list, and like Katie and Deana have said, the first couple were pretty easy, though I found that my head was getting very mixed up with all the different criteria that I was trying to weigh in my head. So I made a spreadsheet as well and constructed a ranking equation. And so the equation had 1/3 rating the ideas and the casting and just the general, what went into planning it. And then there was another 1/3 of the equation for the execution. And then there was another 1/3 for the impact. And the impact included how many times I rewatched something, how much the ideas or the episode impacted me at the time, and whether or not, or how many episodes were in my top 10 in that season. So I did that. And so then, like Deana, I got a whole lot of scores. So I got, an average ranking score, and then I got a score based on how many top 10s or how many impact moments were in that season.
Yeah.
So I've got about 5 different lists. But then looking at those lists, you can then average the average of the lists. And, yeah. But it was better than trying to keep track of all those numbers myself. And they did match up with about what I thought, but it just helped me separate out some different processes that I was trying to use to rank that I couldn't keep track of.
Right. So I feel really bad. I just did it quite intuitively, I think. And I find that there are a few I'm kind of a bit iffy on. And we'll talk about it as we go along. So what we're going to do is, so it's just for seasons. We decided that the films we're leaving to one side. We're included in the revival seasons, of course, even though they're significantly shorter. And I wonder if that's going to affect how we ranked them. We'll find out. The way we're going to talk about this is we're going to go from our least favorite upwards. Right. So we're only going to talk about a season once everybody has listed it. So as a purely hypothetical example, if season 9 was everybody's least favorite, we'd immediately stop and talk about season 9. If 3 of us have it at the bottom, but somebody else has it higher up the pack, we'll wait until the 4th person has listed it. So I don't know. I've got a feeling that there are a few seasons which we'll have in similar sort of positions. And then I think as we go up, I feel it might be much more varied, but time will tell. I'm going to try and keep track of this as we go along. This is going to test my multitasking skills to the limit and beyond, I think, but we'll see. All right, so I'll kick us off with my 11th favourite season, which is season 9. Deana, what is your least favourite season?
Season 9.
Season 9. Katie, how about you?
I had a 4-way tie. No, sorry, that was my my favorite episodes in each season. So actually looking at my average episode ranking, yes, it's season 9.
Oh, season 9.
Yep.
How peculiar. Okay. And Jessica, what have you gone for?
I'm going to be the black sheep. I've got season 10.
Season 10. I thought there was a possibility somebody would have that as their least favourite. Okay. So we'll carry on until we've got everybody has said a season, probably season 9. Okay, so my 10th favourite season is season 10. Okay. Deana?
8.
Season 8. Katie?
My 10th favorite is 10.
Okay.
And my 10th favourite is 9.
All right, so we're going to talk season 9. All right. My main feeling with season 9 is that just watching it to me feels like a slog. It feels tired. It gets off to a bad start, I think. It never fully recovers from the bad start. I mean, I think there are some good episodes, but I think it's really hamstrung by what happens right at the outset in the first episode. Nothing important happened today. So as a season, I feel like it's caught between the old X-Files and it never really commits to becoming something new. It sort of is trapped between two points, I think. So yeah, some good episodes. I think something like John Doe is quite good. I actually quite like Improbable. I don't think there's anything I would say is a classic in this season. It doesn't feel like it's the least essential season for me. So I wouldn't dismiss it completely. I think there's a little, some good stuff here, but it's my least favorite season of the X-Files. Deana, what were you thinking with season 9?
I think least essential is a good way to describe it. Like, I actually felt like maybe I couldn't really give season 9 a good, fair ranking because I was looking at all the episode titles and I was like, wow, I don't even remember these. There's a few of them I actually never watched because about midway through I gave up midway through the season. But I went back and watched 4D, like just to watch something from season 9. And yeah, it's just like sort of, I'm just like not that interested in it. It's kind of boring. And I sort of feel bad saying that because I don't want to, I like Doggett and Reyes, but I'm just not that interested in watching anything from season 9.
Katie, is it similar for you?
Similar, yes. So I was going through, like Deana, going through the episode list and was kind of struggling to like pick out the finer points of all the plots. And I don't like anything with Scully and the baby. I just find it really, like you said, a slog. I kind of like 4D. John Doe, I think, is my favorite of that season. And then the rest, yeah. And there, nothing in this season had anything in my like must-have episode list, and it's actually last in my rewatchable list. So it's really not one that I watch a lot, and not one that I feel I'm missing out on if I don't watch it. So
with your methodology, was it quite clearly at the bottom?
It was pretty clear. It was, a few tenths of a point, down from the next few, but there's a few at the bottom. But 9, definitely, even before I did the math on it, I knew 9 would be down there.
Yeah, it's fair enough. So Jessica, you're the season 9 defender because you had it in the top 10 at 10.
Yeah, top 10 out of 11.
Yeah. Do you have a slightly more positive outlook on it, or do you sort of feel similarly to us?
I think I feel pretty similarly. I think what you said at the beginning pretty much sums it up. I feel like it doesn't commit. It's not the old school X-Files, and season 8 really just did something different and committed to doing something different. And I actually really liked season 8. And I think it's telling that the episodes of season 8 that I like the least are the ones when Mulder comes back. I feel like it becomes convoluted. I feel like it becomes even a bit emotionally manipulative. I hate to say it. And then season 9 doesn't really recover from that because it can't decide what it wants to do. I'm also, as much as I love Doggett, I was just never invested in the dynamic or the character of Reyes and Doggett. I feel bad for saying that, but it just never clicked for me. So yeah, like the others have said, there's no episode that I feel like I watch a lot. John Doe is probably also my favorite from that season, but if I never watched any of those episodes again, I don't feel like I'd be missing out.
So with Doggett and Reyes, do you mean like the fact that they sort of try and push it towards a romantic kind of relationship quite early with those two, don't they? Do you feel like that just never really clicks?
Yeah, I don't like that. I think that's forced, but I think it's even more basic than that. I think other people have spoken about it. I just don't really understand where Rey's character is coming from. So Scully is a natural skeptic, Mulder is a natural believer. Rey seems to believe in everything, and that I think needs more justification than not believing in anything. Believing in everything seems a bigger step. And so I just never really empathized with her as a character. And that makes it hard to become invested in a story.
All right. So unless anybody has anything else to say about season 9, we can go ahead and give our 9th favourite season, I think. So, and of course, we'll stop if we need to and discuss a particular season. So let's see. My 9th favourite season is season 11.
Mine is season 10.
Yours is season 10. Okay. So we're going to talk about season 10 in a minute. Katie, what's your 9th favourite?
It's also season 11.
And Jessica?
I feel like I'm going to alienate a lot of people, but mine is season 4.
Wow. It's going to be a while before we stop and talk about season 4, I think.
I had this is the part of the list I had a lot of trouble with because the middle batch is really close. So I'm not saying it's terrible, but it just came out.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about season 4 eventually. It could be quite a while later, to be honest. Let's find out. but we've all listed season 10. So, okay, with season 10, I'm thinking that when it came out, I actually liked it well enough. I think it's with hindsight that I'm now really thinking it doesn't particularly work as a season. I don't know what you all think, but I just find the mix of episodes a bit uneasy because I think the mythology stuff, trying to relaunch mythology is quite awkward. The standalones are really variable. So there are some interesting things here, but as a season, I just find it quite an uncomfortable blend. I don't know. I think maybe because it's just 6 episodes, I find the tonal shifts between episodes more of an issue. So like the fact that by episode 3, you're back to a pure comedy episode seems kind of odd to me. I don't know. I don't know if a single 6 episode story would have been a good idea. Maybe not all the writers should have been directing their own scripts. Maybe it should have been, they should have had other people come in to do that. I don't know. Making Babylon when you only have 6 episodes to play with, I think is particularly odd. So it's a mishmash for me. That's the word I would use. Jessica, what are you thinking about season 10?
Mishmash. I really like Mulder and Scully Meet the Weremonster. Babylon, I admire for what it's trying to do, but it's too dangerous to do something like that, I think. And they don't quite pull it off. And the biggest problem with season 10 for me is the mythology. I mean, the mythology was always my favourite thing about the show. And by season 10, I know you can make it make sense, but it's too hard to make it make sense. And I'm fed up with all the going back and forth. And so I kind of lost patience with it by then. And I also really wanted to see Doggett back. So I thought it was weird that Reyes came back, but Doggett didn't. Yeah.
I thought it was weird that the cigarette smoking man survived that missile blast to the face at the end of season 9 and was back. Katie, what do you reckon? Season 10?
Yeah, I found that a real stretch. I had to just agree with what everyone else has said. Especially also, for being new X-Files and however many years TV show wise, and just being so excited for it. And then it just felt like such a letdown. Like you kind of got over the initial high of watching a new episode, and then you think about it and it's like, wow, what were they thinking? And I'm not a fan of, the My Struggles, bookending both of those seasons. Actually, I thought you were just kind of forcing yourself into a corner. A lot of it was repeat stuff. It wasn't the show I enjoyed watching. And there are some episodes that you can appreciate that aren't quite enjoyable, but that you recognize them as being good. But I just didn't see anything of that in this season. And, Weremonster being my favorite of those, there's still, looking back on it, there's still like a lot that annoys me in that episode too. So yeah, not great.
Yeah, so I think for me, the high of having new X-Files, because in the UK, we had to wait quite a long time before the TV broadcast of season 10. So I'd heard all the reaction to things like My Struggle, and I knew that when that came out in the US, the critical reviews of that had been really poor. So I'd kind of priced that in to some extent. So when I then saw My Struggle at first, I thought it's not as bad as I maybe had feared. But now I don't feel as positive about it as I did then. Deana, what are you thinking for season 10?
Yeah, I really am not into the mythology of seasons 10 and 11. One thing just I don't think was mentioned yet is like, okay, in addition to the cigarette smoking man surviving, it's just he becomes this like very one-dimensional villain, like evil for the sake of being evil. And it's just sort of like he's way less interesting as a character than he ever was before. So that's part of it. The one My Struggle I dislike the least is My Struggle 2, which just gets some extra points because I really like it when they put like real science in the show. So that's just sort of like my subjective. I sort of enjoyed that. But the Monster of the Week ones were just sort of like, yeah, the Weremonster is like fun and like has good rewatchability and I like it. But the other ones were just like, they just weren't, it was like everybody said, it was like the emotional, like the excitement of having Mulder and Scully back again. But like when you look back on it now, it's like, it's just not as good as some other seasons.
Yeah. Jessica, in Australia, did you get season 10 as it aired in America, do you know? Or did you have a bit of a wait like we did in the UK? Can you remember?
I don't remember. I remember that it was late January, early February in 2016. So where does that put it? Was that about the same time?
Roughly, isn't it? I think, yeah.
Yeah, because
it aired right after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, wait, was it the Super Bowl? No, it was one of the first one aired after one of the playoff games, right? Because we're all sitting there waiting, like they were doing was it the, or
I think it was the Super Bowl because it went long and we were like, come on, give us the X-Files.
Like, it just kept going on and people were giving speeches. It was just like, can we just end this?
Yeah. So that would have been early February.
I certainly hadn't read or heard any reviews when I watched it the first time. And that could just be because I'm not always online much. But I hadn't been influenced by anything I'd read about it. I know that.
I think it became very hard to avoid spoilers for people like in watching season 10 and 11, because I remember like being on Twitter while watching it and I'm like, I'm on the East Coast, but like, California's got to wait 3 hours and you really had to stay, you really had to like not be online.
Yeah, you had to make an effort to not know anything.
Yeah, I got to mute the hashtag and Okay, so this is where it might get a bit more fragmented, perhaps. So let's see. So we're going to give our eighth best season. Now, for me, that's season 6, and I think for some people, maybe season 6 is coming a lot later. Deana, what have you got in position 8?
Season 11.
Okay, so we might be talking about season 11 soon. It depends. Katie,
I have season 8 in my 8th slot.
Season 8 in position 8. And Jessica?
And I have season 11 also.
All right, so we're going to talk about season 11. Okay, so actually we're fairly similar on this one, aren't we? So 2 of us have got it in the 8th spot and 2 of us in the 9th spot. So much better than season 10 for me. Quite a big step up. Some really good stuff. I think this is really good. I think the last start of Forehead Sweat's good as well. I think David Duchovny is very good in this season. So much more respectable. It's a shame then that when season 10 comes back, there's massive public interest in the series again because it had been away for so long. And I think that had just kind of eroded by the time season 11 comes back and is actually much better. I think my criticisms of it, and I don't know what you all think, I don't think Gillian Anderson ever really hit the heights that Duchovny did in the revival season, in this season in particular. I don't think that My Struggles really work. I don't think My Struggle 3 is a good episode at all. And I don't know if those episodes I really like are actual like bona fide classics. I think they're very good as opposed to like truly excellent. So yeah, that's what I think in general. I think if it's the end and it looks like it is the end, it's not a bad swan song for me. Deana, what are you thinking?
I felt similar like that. I liked season 11 so much more than season 10. Like I really enjoyed a lot of the standalones, but as far as like when I averaged together all the stuff, the mythology, the My Struggles really like dragged the average down. So that was really how I was almost sort of surprised that how 10 and 11 were right next to each other when I calculated it out, but because in my head season 11 is like not just a little better, it's like a lot better.
Yeah.
But again, not into the My Struggles at all, but yeah, this +1 Forehead Sweat and Nothing Lasts Forever I really like too. That's like another one of my subjective, just personal things is like when it's like just really gross, I sort of like that. Like FMS Yolata with the exploding, pustules.
Yeah.
I find that surprising.
Yeah.
About you.
Okay, so I think we're on the similar page about season 11. Jessica, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree that it's better than season 10. Obviously, it's higher up the list. There's more to look at. I really like Followers, for example. The RM9SB. I think that's pretty clever. I'd like The Lost Art of Forehead Sweat. I mean, I do have to give kudos to 10 and 11 for attempting to engage with the way the world has changed since the original series. I don't think they always pull it off, but I think it's impressive that that they try. But like everybody said, I was just disappointed by the mythology, and there was so much exposition, even when the story could have been quite good. And I do like in 11 and in 10 the way they engaged with the fact that Mulder's conspiracy theories have become the domain of the far right, and what does that mean for the show? And I thought that was an intelligent thing to look into, but I just don't think it was always deftly handled. And I agree with, I think it was it Carl or Deana, I can't remember who said that I just never really felt invested in Scully as a character as much. She just didn't seem on point to me anymore. She'd always been my favourite character, and I couldn't quite get into it. So despite all those things I admire about it, I just don't really, really love it.
Yeah, so what I was saying with Scully, so like I'm thinking of an episode, for instance, like Ghoulie, where she has the monologue to the body. And I think, she's an incredible actress, Gillian Anderson, but something like that, I just don't connect with it on an emotional level like I imagine I would have if something like that happened in the original run of the series. Just something there is off for me. Can't quite pinpoint it, but something.
And that's the difficulty ranking, don't you think? Because you watch these seasons for the first time at very different times in your life. And so when that happened to me, I was always then second guessing myself. Is that because it's less good, or is it because the older seasons are helped by nostalgia compared to the new seasons? Like how much of it is the actual quality of the season and how much of it is me? And that was sometimes a challenge to disentangle, I found.
That's a really good point. I think we could probably all also say that, like, if we made these rankings, at some different point in our lives, they would have been different.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I think some of the ones that are really high on my list were ones I watched when I was like at a really impressionable age, so I think it's a fair point. Katie, what are you thinking about season 11?
Yeah, kind of the same points. And I agree with Jessica's point there too, that, the older seasons have had a lot more time to sort of become entrenched kind of in your mind and become those beloved things. So yeah, that's definitely a hard part of doing this. But in my rankings, 10 and 11 are basically tied for what I do not enjoy watching. I appreciate that 11 had a little more time to spread out and kind of get some more different ideas out there. So they could be a little more creative. And, the standalones, I did enjoy them when I watched them. They were interesting, but they're not something I would ever put back on. I might watch Forehead Sweat again, but that's pretty much it. And the My Struggles, especially the finale, just really annoyed me. And the same, I never got to terms with the Scully and the William and the whole baby storyline. So again, with that running so prominently through that season 2, it's automatically going to ruin that enjoyment for me. So that's why it's down there.
I think the way it's handled when you go from the end of My Struggle 3, and that whole discussion about William or Jackson, and then the way it's kind of sidelined in My Struggle 4, where there's a discussion in the car between Scully and Skinner, but we don't see much of that at all. I just think whatever happened there to make them take that route, I just thought was very unsatisfying.
Yeah, I think like the more comic booky superhero type of aspect too, that's kind of not what I go into the X-Files for. That shift didn't really sit with me either.
Same.
Yeah.
Those powers and
Is anyone happy with where it ended, as in the very, very end of My Struggle 4? Did anyone think that's an appropriate sort of place to jump off?
No.
No.
Jessica, so is that a no from you as well?
It's probably not.
Yeah.
I just sort of want to throw in about that. I mean, we might talk about this when we get to season 8 too. It's like, I don't like it when the show buys into the idea that like having a baby is the only happy end, or like it's not the only happy ending, but like the best happy ending. And the show did that like multiple times. I mean, with Scully a couple times, but like even like the Rain King, not to like go way off on a tangent, but it was like there was an ending, they got together, the couple got together, but they had to have the baby in the ending. Otherwise it's anyway.
Yeah.
That
you and I are on
thing.
very much the same page.
Yes, I know. That was one of the things about season 11 that really like got under my skin.
All right. So 7th place on your lists. So for me, it's season 7. Is it 7? Deana?
Mine is season 1. And these were the middle ones, very close.
Yeah, this is where it's quite hard for me to distinguish between some of them, I think. Katie?
Season 7. We're very similar, Carl. I have season 7 as well.
Oh, good stuff. Jessica?
I also have season 7.
Right. So we're not going to stop and talk about anything yet, but season 7 is on the bubble. We just need to see where Deana is right now. We're going to go up to our 6th place on the list. For me, that is season 1 now. Is it 6?
And mine is season 7.
Right. So in a minute, we're going to talk season 7. Katie, what's in 6th place for you?
Season 1.
Okay.
But again, not by much.
Yeah. And Jessica?
But again, season 5.
Season 5. Okay. First mention of season 5. So we're going to talk about season 7. So Katie, what are you thinking about season 7 then?
It's just never one that I really warm to. It's kind of like, it's fine. Again, it's not really any episodes that I don't dislike them, but I wouldn't put them on if I was putting on an episode. Kind of X-Cops being the exception. That's like a standout for me in that season. But again, I wasn't that happy with how Requiem ended. And kind of all that leading up to it, it was kind of middling for me. It's just not something I really enjoy to put on if I was going to actually put some X-Files on, which is kind of, how I kind of went with my kind of like gut instinct raking.
Yeah. Deana, how are you feeling about season 7?
So I like season 7, but it's sort of I don't know, I do feel like it's like a little bit hit and miss. Like there's a few that I really like, and then there's a bunch that I just don't feel that strongly about. Like I don't know, maybe like the Goldberg variation of The Amazing Millennia. They're just sort of like, it's not something I'm going to go back to a lot. But yeah, then there's like X-Cops, and I'm like, there's a couple I really like. And then, there's X-Cops. But on the other hand, there's first person shooter. And, so it's sort of like hit or miss. And mythology wise, like there's the shift that happens between, 2 fathers, 1 son, or there's to biogenesis to like season 8 and 9. There's like this real big shift in mythology. And season 7 is sort of between them. There's a little bit of both. Like you have biogenesis and the 6th extinction, and you have Mulder as this like Christ-like character, which I never really liked that much. But then you sort of go back with NME, then you have the cigarette smoking man, and it feels a little more like the old mythology. So it's a little back and forth. But I always felt that the mythology was a lot more interesting when it was like this conspiracy of a few powerful people against everybody, and the human experimentation. And all their like sort of moral gray areas and but the idea of like Mulder as a savior, or William as like the chosen one, or like the cult leader, the cult is after him, like that's just not, it's just not nearly as interesting of a story. One thing I really like about season 7 is Scully's sort of journey to being a little bit more of a believer, not like a complete believer, but has seen enough things to admit to the things she actually has seen. I think it's like really, it's believable, it's organic, and it's sort of like, it's enjoyable as something that happens throughout the season.
And Jessica, how about you?
Yeah, I like season 7 too. So now that we're at this point on the list, it's certainly not the case that I don't like it. In fact, there's some episodes I really like. I really like Orison. I really like X-Cops. I really like Sign and Ziad and Closure. I think Requiem's really pretty good as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's 22 episodes in that season, and there's a lot that feels, a lot of people have said it, tired. So when I look at my ranking, the thing that really brings season 7 down is just the ideas. It just doesn't feel fresh anymore. and that seems to come across in Duchovny and Anderson as well. There's not a lot that I rewatch except for those few favourites, and there's not a lot of mythology in it as well. I mean, there is that the actual closure. Really not a fan of the Sixth Extinction stuff. I appreciate what it's trying to do, a bit like season 10, but I find it pretty forced. So yeah, certainly not a favourite.
So in terms of what we were talking about before, in terms of how this has changed over the years, maybe, I remember not liking this season much at the time at all. I think at one point, when the show originally ended, I think season 7 would have been in last place for me. For a long time, I was convinced it was worse than season 9, which in retrospect, I don't know what I was thinking. Because over time, I have warmed to it. I find it a real mixed bag, and I think it has 2 of the worst episodes ever. I think First Person Shooter and Fight Club are just abysmal. I think absolutely terrible episodes. I think there's a lot to like. I think it has stronger mythology than I think I don't like the season 6 mythology that much in general, but I actually quite like the Sixth Extinction stuff, and then the Closure 2-part I think is really good. Requiem I think is really good. I like how this one has some more solid sort of traditional standalones than season 6 did, or episodes like that seem to work, I think. So I quite like Thief, I quite like Chimera, maybe 1 or 2 others. I think the sense of tiredness is a fair point, but I do think there are some inspired episodes where it's still trying to push the envelope a bit. So I think Ex-Cops is a good example of that. I think it comes on strong again at the end as well. So I think Jesuit and Requiem, I like both of those episodes a lot. So yeah, I'm definitely, I think like somebody said, I think we're in the seasons now that I think are genuinely good. I think it's only really 9 and 10 for me that I would say are not good seasons really of television. I think everything above that is stuff that I like, to be honest. But yeah, I think so. It seems like we're all pretty similar on season 7. We all had it at a similar position on the list as well. So
yeah, and Carl, what you said about like feeling differently about season 7 when it actually aired.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Like if I watch Just Sweat now, it's like, it's so nostalgic. It's so like, I love it so much more than I ever did.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like the end, like just the end of the era, which, is only in hindsight.
Yeah. So Katie, can you remember how you felt about season 7 at the time? Were you sort of, because I think I was just feeling a bit jaded with the series just because I'd been so obsessed with it and that kind of burned out, I think. That's kind of how I felt. But can you remember?
I wasn't feeling jaded, I don't think. Like I definitely enjoyed still watching it. I wasn't at the point where I was like, oh, do we have to tune into the X-Files again and see what they've done this week? So I definitely still enjoyed them. It's not that I don't enjoy season 7, it's that I enjoy other seasons more. Yeah. So there's definitely not the hatred of other seasons here. All
right. So I think we've got a few seasons now that have only been mentioned once. I think season 1 could come up soon because 3 of us have listed it. Let's see. So we're looking at position 5 on the list now. Now for me, that is season 5. Is it position 5?
Mine is season 2.
Yours is season 2. Okay. First mention of season 2. Katie, where are you at now?
All these numbers are getting confusing. All right. So I have season 6 for my 5th spot.
Okay. Jessica?
I also have 6.
Okay. So season 6 is okay. We've got 3 votes for that so far. We're going to carry on because nobody, we haven't ticked off an entire season yet. So we're looking at 4th place on the list. Now, what is that for me? Let's see. Okay, for me that's season 8. Deana?
Season 4.
Katie?
Okay, so I had season 2.
Okay. And Jessica?
And season 1, but it was fraught. 1 and 8 were so close for 3 and 4.
Okay, but we're going to talk season 1 then. So, Deana, you had season 1 at the lowest place of those. So you had it 7th place on your list. So what were you thinking there?
Yeah. So, season 1, it's another one where like I feel kind of bad for not ranking it higher because it's like it's the foundation of everything. So like I feel like it gets points just for that. one thing I've noticed about it rewatching is it's so much more of a like procedural kind of show than like the rest of the show. I feel like it's like Law and Order with like aliens and Bigfoot almost. Like there's a few, I mean, there's certainly like, there's like a lot of really good episodes. And there's like a lot of, I mean, one thing I think is really cool about season 1 was like so much of their characters are like so there right in the beginning. Like I mentioned Jersey Devil all the time. I feel like Jersey Devil's sort of underrated because it's like that establishes when Scully has the choice between having a life and going off and chasing monsters with Mulder, she always chooses going off and chasing monsters with Mulder. And that's there in like, what is that, the 4th episode? Yeah, so it's definitely, it's in this, it's in the rankings, like sort of in the middle, like probably the 4 episodes that are in the middle of my rankings could have gone in like any order.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mine are the same.
Yeah, there's only like a 1/10 of a decimal point between them.
Yeah. So Jessica, you had it the highest of all of us. So you had season 1 up at number 4.
I think what happened is they were all really close, and with all the different rankings, and you sort of had to look at all the different rankings and figure out how to average then the average of the rankings. And season 1 went up near the top because it was the first season I watched, and it was so completely different to anything I'd seen, and it hooked me so completely, so immediately, that it's just got such a spot. Like the impact was huge for me for that episode. But having said that, going back, I still find a lot of the episodes really watchable. So I know there's some bad ones, but the ones that are good are really good and impressively good for such a new show that's so old. So yeah, I really like season 1.
I found this a really tricky one to place because I could sort of see a case for having it 2 or 3 places lower on the list than I'd at number 6. I also could see a case for having it a little bit higher. So what I was sort of thinking was, when it's good, it's really, really good. So, episodes like Ice or Beyond the Sea or Tombs, really good, really great.
I love ABA.
Yeah, really great episodes, from very early on in the series.
Like Beyond the Sea, yeah, it's crazy how good that episode is. Yeah.
When it's bad, it's unlike some of the other seasons in the sense that it can be quite anonymous, I think. So there are episodes like Born Again, which have never made much of an impression on me. The details just don't stick, even though I've probably seen it, half a dozen times. So I don't know. I just find it a season that kind of sticks out a bit compared to what comes later. So you can tell the budget's a bit lower. You can tell the actors are finding their feet in some of those early episodes. So it takes it a while to become the series we really know and love in some ways. Like somebody said, it in other ways, like so much of what makes a series great is there from like the pilot, but in some respects it takes a while. It's just really hard not to be charmed by it, is it? Because you can see the actors get to grips with the characters, because you can sort of see them go from like Blevins to McGrath to Skinner, and then finally that really works with Skinner coming up in Tombs. You can sort of start to see the mythology kind of emerge with EBE and the Erlenmeyer Flask, can't you? Because those earlier ones are a bit more standalone UFO stories. I just find that really interesting to rewatch. I just find it, like I said, charming, and watching it discover itself, I think, is a lot of the fun for season 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally agree, because you're right. It is hard to rank because they're still molding the show. They're kind of finding their feet, but you can see where the basis of what will become the X-Files is there already, but it's kind of fun to see them shaping that. And like you said, the characters are coming together, and I felt bad. Like I didn't rank it low, but
we're in the top
I felt
half.
bad not ranking it higher. Yeah. Because it really does have a lot of nostalgia for me. And in my like X Factor category with, I count the number of episodes I can't do without, I counted it much higher. There's like 9 episodes in that season that I would have to have. So, I mean, and for being the first season of a show, I think that's pretty excellent, because there's some excellent episodes there.
Well, and it's also like another way you could look at it is like, but it also like the show got better, like with time over the first, or at least over the first few years. which is a good thing, because I mean, I don't know, maybe it's probably different now, but a lot of times now, like when a show comes out and it's like a really big hit, there's a whole bunch of talk about like, oh, is the second season going to live up to it? Whereas, I mean, X-Files, I don't know how big of a hit it was in the first season, if it was more of like a slow burn, but like, you know, the second season's even better. And, you know, so that's really like a positive thing to say about it.
Yeah.
I think too, because it had, you know, back in the day when you had 22 episode seasons, that you had a lot more time to spread out and kind of like experiment and, you know, see where you're going with the show. And yeah, it's not like, oh, this episode didn't do well, the next one better do well, or we're going to cancel the show. Like it was allowed to sort of grow, and it definitely was, you know, kind of an underground cult show. It wasn't the popular thing that it would become.
Yeah, no, it was a bit of a sleeper here, wasn't it? Is what I understand.
Yeah, it was slow, but I think it was really critically appraised from quite early, and then became popular as it went on. That's my memory.
It's fascinating to ponder how different it would have been today, because like, imagine today if it came out and you got all the episodes at once, or even if it was week to week, but you know, there are a few little rough patches in season 1. I'm just sort of imagining what the online discourse would be. I just think the process of like word of mouth would work very differently today. Do you know what I mean? I think it's so many things it had to be sort of that sort of time for it to become the phenomenon it did over an extended period.
Yeah, you have to wait. I actually had a calendar. I had to tick off the hour, 168 hours till the next episode.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, wow. This is like, did anybody else think about this as, or I started thinking about the different seasons as like the different albums that my favorite band put out or something. Like I feel like you could talk about it in the same way, like how the people the fans who heard the first album, like when it first came out, there's like something about that. There's like a, you know, a connection there, but like, and a lot of times, like when then the album comes out that maybe has some more commercial success and then more people are into the band, then the people who were into it at the beginning are like not so into it anymore. And I was thinking about the seasons of the X-Files in the same way when I was doing these rankings.
Yeah,
that's true.
Like,
yeah,
that's how I always feel about 4 and 5, which is possibly why they're so low, because I know they're quite loved, and I tried to be really objective about it. But I think there is an element of what you say there, Deana, because by that point everybody was into it, and I just didn't like those seasons as much. I did not find them as compelling. Season 1, I love the premise of having. It seemed to me such an original premise of both Mulder and Scully look at truth in such different ways, and Scully wants to prove everything, and Mulder has these more far out beliefs, but he's still not your standard conspiracy theorist in that he respects the fact that you need to have evidence to point to something. So he believes these extraordinary things because he has extraordinary evidence, not because it's some ideological position that he wants to take. And yeah, I just thought that was so intelligent and interesting. And being a science nerd, it was nice to see science on TV. Yeah, it had such a massive impact on me, season 1.
Deana, with your analogy of like the albums, did you have a particular band or singer in mind?
I did actually. I'm a big Depeche Mode fan, and so I started thinking about like the different seasons as like just like as an example. I don't know, like many people know that the albums. I'm like, you know, season 2. It's sort of like Black Celebration. Like it's still sort of under the radar. Season 3 is music for the masses. It's like, it's sort of like, it's a mix of like pop hits and like dark, weird songs, but like it got really popular. And then like by season 5, it's like you're at Violator, you know, Policy of Truth, Enjoy the Silence, like massive commercial. And so like I had this whole list, but it sort of went chronologically similarly in the same way, because it's like, you know, the nice. Like just, you know, sort of cult following, then big following, and then, you know, sort of starting to lose the shine.
No, I like that, because I think on a recent episode, Kurt was talking to Chris Knowles, and Chris had a theory that like every Beatles album,
oh yeah,
like a season of the X-Files.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
I think it's hard to. I find it hard to map it across like that. But I like.
You could plot your favourites as a function of where they occur in a series. That's
true. That's really interesting because season 5 is where I came into the show like as it started, but I had that whole summer before that premiere to like watch every single rerun that I could find, and they were running reruns daily on FX. So like I kind of got the whole backstory, and then I jumped into that premiere. So I'm kind of like in between starting at the popular spot, but also having a little more back info. So
yeah.
So I still feel a lot of nostalgia for all those older seasons.
Katie, did you and Deana watch it at the same time? Because you guys know each other from ages ago, right?
I was going to get into that like when we get to season 6, but Katie was into the show. We were matched up as roommates in college. So Katie got me into the show in our first year of college. After it took much nudging because I thought it would be too scared. I thought it'd be
it was like halfway through season 6.
So I didn't start watching till midway through season 6.
But I forced it on her.
Yeah, and I'm glad she did.
Well done.
Glad she
did. All right, so let's move on to our top 3 seasons. I think at the moment season 8 is on the bubble, but let's see. So for my third placed season, I'm going for season 4. Deana, what are you going for?
My number 3 is season 5.
Katie?
Mine is also season 5.
Right, so we're going to talk about season 5 in a moment. Jessica, what have you got at third place before we do?
Season 8.
Right, so we're going to talk about season 5 and we're going to talk about season 8. Season 8, we got quite a big disparity then because we had Deana who has it in 10th place and Jessica who has it in 3rd. I had it 4th and Katie had it 8th. So Deana, do you want to give us the most negative outlook first?
Season 8 will bring out my strongest emotional reactions. And I will say that my feelings on season 8, it's very subjective. Like I know that objectively, there's a lot of good episodes. I find season 8 unwatchable. Scully's grief is just so intense that that's all I'm getting. Like I can't focus on the case. It just it just makes me sad. There's a couple within just I just can't. I don't want to watch it ever because it just grief. I do like Without. I like Roadrunners. But actually, I want to go back to you. I wrote this down. Something Jessica said when you said sort of, especially when Mulder comes back, how season 8 felt emotionally manipulative. I wrote down that exact same phrase. That's how I feel about season 8. That it's emotionally manipulative. That we're just. It's just making us cry with Scully over and over and over again. Especially This Is Not Happening and Dead Alive was like my breaking point with the series. It's just like, David Duchovny's finally back and you're going to kill him, bury him, and then dig him up. Just no. That felt so manipulative. We're just twisting the knife in Scully for the sake of doing it. And so that's what really bothers me about season 8. And there's also the thing about, so I said in season 7 how Scully's journey toward being a little bit more of a believer, believing in, the things that she actually really has evidence for, and that it sort of happens believably and organically. In season 8, it's just very abrupt. How all of a sudden, she believes in, not everything, but, she's just way more of a believer. And she keeps saying that she's trying to be more like Mulder, trying to think about the case like Mulder. And I just never got anything out of that. I never thought that was a good idea, because that's just not who Scully is. She's not intuitive. She needs evidence. And I want her to want it. I really relate to Scully. That's why I watched the show. And I wanted her to remain the skeptic, remain the scientist, and want the evidence. So I think that's everything.
I think maybe we should gradually get more positive. So, Katie, you had it a bit higher, didn't you? You had it number 8. So
yeah, I'm not much better than Deana though. So brace yourself.
Okay.
This season we did watch together.
We did, yeah.
Okay. So you should have some warm, fuzzy memories of it, yeah?
We do actually of ordering Chinese food, watching
Eating it
X-Files,
together.
and screaming at the television.
And then getting really
In
mad
unison.
about it. Yeah. So that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll preface this by saying I really do like Doggett. I enjoy the times when Scully and Doggett are actively working together. I like his character. I love the actor. But I feel like I just don't get enough of that. I get too much. And I wrote this phrase down: overloading of angst and trauma just for the sake of creating drama. So same idea basically as you guys had. Yeah. I just, like Weepy Scully, I don't want to watch that. Maybe that's where the writers intended her to be all along with the whole baby thing, but also the entire like cliched storyline of like a pregnancy being so complicated. There's always complications. There's always someone always wants to like kill it. Someone wants to steal it. Somebody, wants to steal it before it's born, after it's born. And then, Scully, she kind of just becomes like this object to be moved around and have things done to her. That is so against my sort of personal outlook on things. It made the whole thing really unenjoyable for me. And there are good episodes. I like Within and Without. That's kind of it. Goes downhill from there for me. Because that whole part just clouds all the rest of it.
So I think for me, again, going back to how subjective it is, I just remember at the time, like I said, hadn't really loved season 7. And then I remember feeling rejuvenated by season 8. I remember really liking it from the get-go. Really liked Within and Without. I think Robert Patrick does really well. I think Doggett's a great addition. I think his addition opens up some interesting new areas for them to get into. I love the back to basics vibe of some of those early standalone. I'd always been really taken by the creepier episodes, and I think I always found it a shame when it got away from that in season 6 and 7. So I thought some of those were really good. I really like Roadrunners. I really like Via Negativa. Now, for me, and I know some people disagree on this, I think After Mulder Returns, I don't think it's ever quite as good as that early run. I don't think any individual episode in the back part of season 8 is as good as some of those ones that came before. I still find it quite watchable. I think it comes to a respectable enough ending, even if it's not the kind of ending I necessarily would have chosen or foreseen. So in a lot of ways, I think it's a shame that you go from... I think it's a shame that season 9 exists after season 8, basically. I think if it had stopped at existence, I could have lived with that. So I had it 4th. Jessica, you had it 3rd, so you like it a lot too.
Yeah, I do really like it. And if I'd be asked to articulate why I like it, which I am, it would be because it does return to those darker roots of what the show was originally about. And I do really like, for me, I see this theme going through season 8 of investigating or just interrogating the nature of evil.
Yeah.
I see that through a lot of episodes, and I think that's a really interesting thing to look into. I really like This Is Not Happening, but in a kind of masochistic way. Is that the word? Like it makes me cry every time I watch it, but I just find it so powerful. Mm-hmm. But held like against that is also the episodes before and after, where even though this awful thing has happened and we really love this person and we're so emotionally invested, when, Scully's last chance to save him is annihilated, still when he comes back, it's not what it was. And even though I don't really like the last few episodes as much as the first ones, like you were saying, Carl, I like the fact that they deal with the fact that Mulder has to accept that it's not going to be the same and he has to move on. And I think that's, I don't know, watching the series, that felt a bit like my journey. Like I'd been very nostalgic about the show and I didn't want it to change. And then I felt it was the show acknowledging that, things have to change. and that doesn't make it bad, it makes it different. And I just liked the fact that they engaged with that.
So you mean like the passing the torch stuff to
Doggett? Yeah, and the different approach that Doggett has. I don't like Essence and Existence. It would have been nice for me if it had finished at Alone, but the rest of the series, the season, I really like.
It's an interesting one. I'm looking forward to podcasting about season 8 this year because I know opinion is all over the place on this particular season. We're a bit more clustered on season 5. So I think Jessica had it at 6th place. I had it 5th. Deana and Katie both had it in 3rd. So, yeah, I mean, I find it hard to fault season 5, really. I think this is where we're sort of getting into the gushing section of the list for me. I think it's very good. I think it starts really well. I don't think there's anything I'd consider like a really awful episode there. I think some people think Schizogeny is that, but I think it's okay. I think there are some really great episodes, Bad Blood, Foley Adieu, which, and some others. Why isn't it higher on my list? I just think there are some other seasons that have more classic episodes. And I think there are a few like mild or relative disappointments. So I remember being really excited to hear Stephen King was involved in an episode. And then Chinga just wasn't the knockout episode I'd hoped it would be. I remember being really excited that there was going to be a follow-up to Pusher. And then Kitsun Nagari's okay, but it's nowhere near as good as that earlier episode. But, I'm still thinking season 5 is a really excellent season of television. So, Jessica, how about you?
This is a challenging one because some of my favourite episodes ever are in this season, but then some episodes that I really don't like are in it as well, like the end, like Redux 1, I really don't like. I don't like Emily. And what really brought it down, in addition to those episodes I don't like, is I don't like the direction the mythology starts to take. It has started to take since season 4. I feel like I know that it was a factor of external influence and Chris Carter having to sort of stall the mythology he'd originally planned. Yeah, but here, like we were talking about emotional manipulation before, I feel like this is it's just keeping us hanging, but it's not really doing anything. And I found that really frustrating. And yeah, in the end, where you have the end and you introduce Diana Fowley, and which seems for the sake of just creating a romantic triangle, and that was just really annoyed me. And I also feel that I do like the Red and the Black and Patient X in some ways, but like Terma and Tunguska in the season before, there's so much exposition in these mythology episodes, which doesn't make it as gripping.
Tell us a bit more about the positive things for season 5, Jessica, because you said there's some really great episodes there. Which are the ones you really are into?
I love Bad Blood. Yeah. I love The Usual Suspects. Reminds me of my friends at school. I like Foley Adieu a lot. I think that's really clever effects that people complain about aside. The Pine Bluff variant is not my favourite episode, but it's really, really good. I quite like Schizogeny. I know that the ideas are all muddled, but it's fantastic to look at, and I really like the ideas. Yeah. And Detour, they're probably the top ones. I like Kill Switch too. I know that's a bit divisive, but I do like that completely different aesthetic and the kind of cyberpunk themes. So yeah.
Yep. Okay, Katie, this is one of your favourite seasons, yeah?
It is, yeah. And I really, season 2 and season 5 are kind of interchangeable on my list, but season 5 has that nostalgia factor, I think, for me a little bit, because it was, the first season I watched from the start. And I think, for me, like the first 5 episodes of the run, I think are extremely strong. I really love Gethsemane Redux 2. And then, the few on from there. And, I love Kill Switch as well. I think that's an excellent episode. Bad Blood is an absolute classic. So for me, like season 5, it still feels kind of gritty enough. Still in Vancouver. I recognize that break. Season 6 starts to feel a little shiny for me. but season 5 still has that kind of gritty feeling. And I just think it's a run of really strong episodes.
And Deana, I'm assuming you feel at least somewhat similarly because you had it at the same place in your list as Katie did, yeah?
Yeah, pretty similar. Actually, so season 5 ranked for me a little bit higher mathematically than I ranked it in my final rankings. So like overall, mathematically, it came out second for me, but that's sort of not where I wanted to put it. And so I put it third. I think it comes down a lot to, Carl, what you said is like, there's just no bad episodes in season 5. It's, it's like a perfect album. You can just listen to the whole thing. You don't want to skip any songs. And like, that's sort of how I feel about it. Like, I think the one I like the least would be Sketchogeny, and it's really not that bad. Yeah. Like, I would still watch it. I really like Patient X and the Red and the Black. I really enjoy like when we get episodes that explore Scully's sort of inner world, because it's always hard we're never really sure what she's thinking, where she is with all this. And like Scully just sort of being the skeptic, but coming to terms with, she's got this chip in her neck and it led her to this place and she doesn't know how she got there. And I enjoy those episodes for that. I've watched Bad Blood more times than any other X-Files episode, probably. I love Foley Ado. Detour was one of the first episodes I watched. The only thing, and also Redux, the Southern Blot thing, like not so much when I originally saw it, but when I was in graduate school and working in a lab every day, like seeing Scully do this stuff in a lab and understanding what she was doing was always like, that was such a big deal to me that they actually showed this on TV. And so the one thing I don't like about season 5 is like skeptical Mulder.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem believable.
It ends pretty fast though.
And it's pretty transient or transitory.
He's skeptical about some things, but not others, isn't he? It's kind of what happens. So, all right. So I think they're going to come thick and fast now. I will note at this point that nobody has yet mentioned the third season. So it's at least theoretically possible we'll all have the same favourite at this point. Time will tell. Season 6 is on the bubble. So we're looking at our top 2 now. Second favourite season. So for me, it is season 2 in second place. For Deana, how about you?
Season 6.
Right, so we're going to talk season 6 shortly. Katie?
Season 4.
We're also going to talk season 4. Okay, and Jessica?
Season 3.
Controversially, season 3. Okay.
So close.
Season 6 then. Yeah, I had it quite low, didn't I? I had it 8. If I need to justify that because I'm much lower than the rest of you. I think, for a lot of people, it's going to be much higher, isn't it? I think there is some great stuff in season 6. I'm thinking of episodes like Monday, Milagro, Field Trip are all episodes I enjoy a lot. What I find difficult to ignore is that I think there are things in this season that I find truly insipid. I'm thinking Exhibit A, and I know I've talked about it on the podcast before, but that mirror sequence in Dreamland, right? That is terrible. I just find that absolutely terrible. I don't mind the lighter shift. Everyone talks about X-Files light. I don't mind that. I just find some of the episodes themselves that I don't particularly enjoy. I feel like some of the bread and butter stuff is quite uninspired. Alpha is a great example of that. I think the shift to LA has a downside as well as an upside. I think there are some things they do in LA which they couldn't have done before. I do also think you miss out a bit. So the mythology is quite patchy. So I find 6 a mixed bag. Deana, you had it in second place. So go on. What's the case for season 6 being so high?
For me, it's mostly my emotional attachment to it, because that was when I started watching the show. And at the time I was very, like I said, I mean, I know it sounds silly, but I was afraid to watch the show because I thought it would like give me nightmares. I was never into like horror at all, or like any, like really suspense, like really anything other than comedy, like barely even drama. So the more comedic episodes that in season 6 were like, I really loved them when I first started watching the show. And, now I really like a lot of, I like all of the different genres, but at the time it was really the comedy ones. And, and there's, like you said, Carl, there's some that are just so good in season 6. There's Monday, there's, Tithonus, but then there's a couple that are spectacularly bad, like Alpha. Yeah, it's just I think probably I rewatch season 6 episodes more than other ones, and I think that's why I wanted to rank it second, even though mathematically it did not come out second when I look at all the episodes. But it's just like, it's sort of the nostalgia. It's like where I was when I was watching it, and just like the memories of it for me.
Yeah. Katie, you had it in 5th place.
Yeah, and that actually kind of surprised me, because when I just think about 6 as a whole, I think that I don't like it. But when I actually go back and watch a lot of the episodes, I know I do. So, and I think part of it too is I think the LA shift took a lot of getting used to, but there are some fantastic episodes that you really can't deny. Drive Triangle was great just for what it tried to do. Tithonus, Monday, all that. I really can't stand the Dreamlands. They drag it down for me. There's a few others that just...
I think I'm the only person who likes Dreamland.
For me, it's specifically that mirror sequence is the thing. Some of the rest of it is good.
No.
That sequence.
The mirror thing I actually get over by just like the difficulty of learning the choreography and being that synchronized. I think like lets it go for me.
That's what I don't like. It just feels so vain. Like they must have spent so much. Anyway, Katie, go on. Sorry.
But yeah, like there's just a lot of nostalgic ones in there too. Like I know a lot of people don't like How the Ghost Stole Christmas, but I absolutely love that one. I love Three of a Kind. I know that's not a favorite either, really, but I love the Longaben acting the way they do together. Unnatural.
Yeah, and I mean, come on, you can. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you can watch that scene of Scully with the cigarettes. Like you could just watch that on mute for hours.
You can,
or I could.
Oh, absolutely. So it kind of surprised me that I ranked it as high as I did, because in my mind, like I said, it wasn't that high, but I will give it its credit. And actually, and listening to the XCast season of season 6, I think gave me a lot more appreciation of it too. And it made me realize that, I do like a lot of this. So that was good to explore.
Oh, good to know. Jessica, you also had it at 5th place on your list. So what are you thinking there?
Yeah, season 6 is a funny one because there's a lot that I rewatch, but there's quite a few that I really don't like. Dreamland being one of them. Biogenesis, I'm not a big fan of either. I like the ideas, but I feel like they get some fundamental things wrong. Well, so what if God came from space? Who cares? Like, it's a thing that can't be understood. So I think season 6, even more than 4 and 5, sort of marked this shift from early on in the series where there was a whole lot of almost scientific questions. Someone said earlier that the early seasons were very procedural. So they sort of would pose this what if question, what if this bizarre thing happened and then or could happen, and then would look at the evidence for that. And that was inherently interesting for me and emotionally affecting at times. And then as it went on, it became more about setting up situations or teasing the Mulder-Scully relationship or becoming a comedy of manners. And that just didn't appeal to me as much. And in addition, Two Fathers and One Son, I like that they wrap up the mythology. I like the ideas in it, but it just seems to want its cake and eat it too. The fact that the cigarette smoking man and Diana Fowley get away, and was it Darren Mooney that said that everybody that's got a name survives? And so it feels like it's running in place with the mythology, and the mythology is what really drew me in. So the fact that it's coming down in the mythology means that the whole season as a whole comes down for me, even though there are some fantastic episodes in this season. I think one that hasn't been mentioned yet that I really like is Field Trip. And again, that's another example of what if this could happen, and you think, well, maybe it could. I really like those episodes.
Yeah, love Field Trip. It's absolutely brilliant.
Speaking of Field Trip, and going back to Katie and I watching season 8 together, like how many times did I turn to you and be like, this isn't really happening, you're still stuck in the mushroom.
All right, now they're in the dream. No, now they're in the dream.
Do you really think that?
Not anymore. I mean, at the time it was like not that far, away. So I thought like it was possible, but I gave up on that eventually. But yeah, I like what you said also about biogenesis. Like I wrote down almost the same thing. Like, oh, God is actually aliens. Well, who cares? Like it doesn't really like have any impact on anybody or like how they live their lives. Like it changes science books or something. Like and that was something I really didn't like either. And also the teasing of the Mulder Scully relationship, I think is something that, I mean, I don't know if you all have had a similar experience. Like at the time didn't bother me so much, but if I watch it now, like I really don't like it at all.
Yeah, they took what was organic and started to use it to manipulate you,
to force it. Yeah,
and
I think that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
I feel like there are going to be some people screaming at their podcasting device about that. I know there's all sorts of different opinions on that. But hey, that's what we're here for.
You can tweet at us.
Yeah, tweet at us. Okay, season 4, well, I had it 3rd, Deana had it 4th, Katie had it 2nd, Jessica had it 9th. So what I'm thinking there is it gets a bit of a bump from me because Home is my all-time favourite episode. I think there are also some other exceptionally strong episodes. I think Paper Hearts is an absolute classic. I think there's an argument that it's an inconsistent season because you have stuff like Teleco and El Mundo Guerra, but I think all these seasons are to some extent inconsistent. I don't really mind that. I think the mythology is generally quite strong. I think after Memento Mori, I quite like it. I think the actors are still at the absolute top of their game during the season. They're still, they look great. Their performances are fantastic. I like the fact that you have the Morgan and Wong episodes here, because obviously they've been away for a season, then they come back. I have issues with most of those episodes individually. I like them as a collective, because I like the way those episodes are kind of pushing the series in various new directions, even if I don't think they all come off, but I like that they're in there. So when I think about the X-Files as peak years, I always think of season 4 as one of those. Katie, how do you feel?
I feel the same way. I would call it like peak X-Files. I'm still really good with the mythology in this point. I think it's kind of, still in the real heart of the myth arc, kind of where it started. Hasn't really started to change much yet. And I think there's some like really fantastic episodes. I mean, there's some, the 2-parter, Tempest, Fugit, and Max. That's like one of my all-time favorite 2-parters. And I really like Tunguska and Terma. I know a lot of people don't, but I think I like a lot of the pieces in them. So to me, that doesn't really take away from the whole episodes. Paper Hearts is fantastic. I really have Unrequited. I know that's not a favorite, but yeah. Rewatchable. I just enjoy sort of the straightforward. And I like that Skinner's involved too. So I like that in this season, it's people work together that don't normally kind of get out and do their field work together. So I enjoyed that. And yeah, I feel like it's kind of one of the seasons of peak X-Files, and I will always go back to watch it, and I'll always kind of keep it really high.
And also, just thinking nostalgically for a second, I remember at that time I was still young enough that I took the end of Gethsemane pretty much at face value. I wasn't thinking, well, he has a contract, of course he's coming back. I was like, this is blowing my mind, Deana, how about you?
Season 4 for me is one of those that it's like the whole is more than the sum of its parts. I really like the mood of season 4 way more so than I did 20 years ago. It's just like it's dark. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of emotion that feels very earned, like not manipulative. Season 4 to me is like I have to be in the mood for it. But when I am in the mood to like really just like let myself cry at something, Elegy, Memento Mori, The Field Where I Died, Paper Hearts, like those are just I get so much out of them when I watch them. And Never Again is like one of my favorites. It's in my top, definitely in my top 5. and which is definitely a divisive one, but it's the Scully's inner world thing. Scully's just sort of torn between Mulder and just the rest of the world, normal life. Sort of like grieving for what she's lost because of her job with Mulder. And also, I like Tunguska and Terma, Scully piecing together why was this virologist killed? And the black oil. I love the black oil. And Home and Unruhe, to me, are the two scariest episodes of the entire run of the series. And I don't know if I'm saying that as positive or negative, because I really don't like to be scared that much, but they're scary.
It's a quality scare.
Yeah, definitely. So Jessica, interestingly, you're the season 4 naysayer because you have it on your list only ahead of seasons 9 and 10 and behind season 11. So interesting. Explain yourself, please.
Oh, my first element of explanation is that it's very close to all those other ones, as I think I said. I think I'll be the first to admit that this is like an opposite of a nostalgia thing. The thing, like some of the numbers were a bit higher than I ended up ranking it. As Deana has said with some of her rankings, my equation just wasn't perfect. It wasn't capturing everything that I was feeling. And for me, this is where I went from being completely obsessed with the show to thinking, I didn't like that. And that was the first time that had happened for me since I'd started watching it. Was partly to do with the mythology stalling. Like I find Herrenboat just so annoying, the way come with me and I'll tell you everything, or just tell me now.
Then I'll never tell you.
So I didn't like that. Yeah.
Even though we've taken a 12-hour car ride.
Yeah, exactly. All that stuff. That and that was the beginning, and it just set me up badly. Yeah, some bad episodes. I don't like Taliko. I don't like El Mundo Gira. But there's a lot in here I do like. Interestingly, some of my favorite episodes are in here. I think Gethsemane is really quite clever. I really like Never Again as well. Paper Hearts is fantastic. But the mythology and the general feeling of disappointment I had with this season drags it down for me. And Tunguska and Terma, I love the idea. Again, it's just showing how on the ball they are, because wasn't season 4 was 98, is that right? That's around the same time that they discovered the polyaromatic hydrocarbons in the rock in Mars, right? So I liked the way that they were sort of having the alien in the rock from space, but it stopped hanging together for me. It stopped making sense, and I was just so disappointed in it. That's why it's low, even though individually I like a lot of the episodes.
Okay, now if I've kept my records correctly, I should be able to fill this in now. I should be able to work it out. So because we're on our favourites now, aren't we? So
we're testing you.
Yeah, this is where it all unravels. Maybe. No, my favourite is season 3. Deana, I'm thinking, is also season 3. Is that right?
It is.
Katie, I'm also thinking is season 3.
Yes, it is.
And Jessica is the contrarian of season 2. Is that right?
That's right.
Also an excellent season.
But season 3 is second. So it's not
I'm glad
compared.
somebody didn't pick season 3. It makes it more interesting.
Yeah, so I think let's talk about season 2 first, because I think the weighted average, season 3 would be the top with the fact that 3 of us have got it first. So season 2, I'm thinking of it, this might be a bit odd, but the way I think of it is as kind of the X-Files' all-star season. And what I mean is that, you have Chris Carter writing some really good episodes. Glenn Morgan and James Wong are still there writing some really great episodes, like One Breath, for example. You get the first Darren Morgan episode. You get the first Vince Gilligan episode. You get Frank Spotnitz joining the team. Kim Manners directs for the first time. So I think there's kind of a sense that all the people who are most fundamental to the quality of the X-Files are involved in season 2. And many of them are doing some of their very best work, I would say. Someone like Vince Gilligan obviously comes on strong a bit later, but at least he's there. I just find it an exciting season to watch because of the way it develops as it goes along. I think the first third's a very good way to just accommodate the various off-screen circumstances there, especially Gillian Anderson's pregnancy. I find it really interesting how that run becomes very pivotal to the mythology going forward. I think then after she's back, I think you get more great mythology episodes. I think you get some very memorable standalones. I think the aesthetic of the series really falls into place by the second half of the second season. I think when people who aren't X-Files fans as such sort of picture the series, they're probably picturing episodes like Die Handy Valets, that kind of eerie Vancouver atmosphere that you get in an episode like that. I think is quintessential X-Files. As ever, I think there are some things we can critique. You obviously got things like Fearful Symmetry, Excelsis Day, but I think it's very close to being the show at its zenith, is what I would say. Dean, you had it a bit lower, actually, didn't you? You had it 5th place. What do you think?
I did. Okay, my 3rd, 4th, and 5th were 5, 4, and 2. And really, to me, when I first made my list, I was like, really, those 3 are tied for me. I don't really have, I can't really think of anything negative to say about season 2. I guess would be the way I put it. It's, it's just the show really getting its rhythm, getting some inertia, and I don't really have anything more to say about it.
Yeah. How about you, Katie?
Yeah, the same thing. I think 2 is just a fantastic season, and it's the season that has the second highest number of episodes that I really enjoy rewatching. And it's really getting its groove. And it's amazing to think that kind of the basis of the mythology of the show was just sort of something they had to think up really quickly just to deal with that situation. And it's become such a foundation. And those runs of episodes in the beginning, like you said, are just amazing. And some of my favorites are in here. For Scare Factor, I love Irresistible in sort of a horrible way. I love to watch that one. I love .com. I've got to put a shout out for that one. I'm always a fan of .com. But a season that has Honest Ozzy, it has to be so fantastic.
But not so much D&D romance.
No, just that one scene that drags the whole episode down for me.
Which scene is that? Sorry.
Oh, it's when the pig starts coming alive.
Oh yeah. I
first watched that episode when I was downstairs in our old house, in a darkened, finished basement room, watching it by myself, and I terrified myself by watching that. So I don't like that episode. And there really aren't that many that, I don't like Fearful Symmetry, but Excelsis Day is awful. But the rest of them are, I will watch them anytime. Yeah. And I think for being the second season of the show too, for being this high up on, most of our lists, it just, like you said, it has that all-star kind of cast forming, and they just jump right in, and you can tell the quality of what the show is going to be.
And I think there are some legitimately kind of under-discussed or underrated episodes too. Something like Aubrey, I think, is really good, but doesn't get talked about all that much.
I think just because there are such fantastic episodes in that season, other ones that are really good just get sort of, put aside.
Yeah. Jessica, tell us why it's your favorite season of the X-Files.
Well, it came top on every single ranking system I used. So this was the one that I knew season 2 was my top. So the execution has got better than season 1. Season 1 looked good, but there were some things that were a bit clunky, and season 2 is a bit smoother. The ideas are just top notch. There's so much variation. You've got the mythology is just so fascinating at this point, and so compelling and so well done. But then you get Darren Morgan coming in, like he said, and you've got Anasazi, and you're introducing the real world elements of, the World War II connections and imagery. You've got colonization first coming up in Colony and Endgame. You've got these fantastic, creepy procedurals that may be paranormal or may not be, like Irresistible, which is like the Beyond the Sea of the second season. Aubrey is good. F. Emasculata is great and gets a lot of recognition now, but I don't remember it getting much at the time, and it's kind of scarily prescient when you think about it. And the impact it had on me was just huge. This came out when I was about 15, And it was the first time I'd been left at home by myself while my family went on holiday. And I just watched the season again for a week that I recorded. And, listening to, Dwayne Barry with Red Right Hand playing in the background. And Nick Cave was one of my favourite artists at the time. One Breath is in my top 10. Anasazi is in my top 10. There's just, even though I agree that Excelsior's Day and Fearful Symmetry to a lesser extent are not good, there's so much that I rewatch here. It's got 3 of my top 10. Huge impact. I love season 2.
It's a really good season. Really, really good. Okay, so the 3rd season, I just think I had it top. I think this is X-Files firing on all cylinders. I think the mythology is very strong. I think the standalone's very, you got Pusher, you've got the Darren Morgan episodes, which are excellent. You've got some episodes, again, that maybe aren't discussed enough or appreciated enough. Like, I think Oubliette is really good. I think relatively few disappointments. Of course, there are. I think the one people always look at is Tessa Does Bitches, isn't it?
It's bad, but it's not offensive, as someone else has said. So it could be worse.
It's dull, I think.
It's good for a laugh.
Yeah. It's just very the series is very atmospheric at this point in time. The actors just look ridiculously attractive and are just giving iconic performances. I think this is also the series, I think it's kind of at or close to its cultural height. This is when it genuinely seemed to be everywhere by this point, didn't it, at the time? Which doesn't necessarily mean it's the best season, but I think this is kind of like when everything seemed to line up. So I think the show was at its best at this point, and by this point it started to become truly iconic. I think it's one of the best ever seasons of television. I do. Katie, what do you say?
I agree. I think part of it too for me is this has the highest concentration of Darren Morgan episodes, which really lifts it for me because I love every one of those. Clyde Bruckman is my favorite episode ever, and the rest don't fall too far behind. There's not one of these episodes that I wouldn't very easily put on and watch. Blessing Way Paperclip especially is amazing. You could list the ones that aren't as amazing much easier than the ones that are. It would take you a lot less time. Piper Maru, Apocrypha, that's one of my favorite. And then you have Pusher, Jose Chung. Quagmire was the first episode I ever saw, so that has like a very sentimental spot for me. Wet Wired's amazing. Nisei 731, that's like another classic. A lot of good two-parters in this season, which I really like the way they kind of connected the two-part episodes. When they were good, they were absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I always knew this was my favorite season, and all my rankings, like, they just proved that fact. I didn't really have to think much about this one.
Yeah, no, I think I always knew this would be top. I knew season 9 would be last, and I knew this would be top. Jessica, what do you say?
Similar to what I said for 2, except that I guess 2 did it first, which is why 3 is just slightly lower. I also felt I love the Black Oil and I like Piper Maru and Apocrypha, but I feel like the storytelling is a bit slow and convenient at times. I don't want to be critical. I'm just looking for something to distinguish it from season 2. Yeah. I just didn't find it quite as compelling. But yeah, basically great. And I guess for me, my favourite Darren Morgan episode is Humbug, and that's in season 2. So I don't know, season 2 just had more of an impact on me. I do, in season 3, really like a lot of the episodes. I love Quagmire. I like Talitha Kumi, Wet Wired. Yeah, Paperclip, not Blessing Way, though it's got some great scenes in it. So yeah, it's really good. It's number 2.
Yeah, it's really good. I think season 2, for me, I think Anasazi's a better finale than Talitha Kumi is. Talitha Kumi's okay, but I think Anasazi's like a classic.
Yeah.
Okay, Deana, how about you? You also had it top of the list, of course.
Yeah, I also had it as my number 1. And yeah, it just has, some of my favorite of the standalones. And to me, it's the most engaging part of the mythology. And like, I would want to say that relative to season 2, I felt like season 3 really took like all of these seeds that were planted in season 2 and like really ran with them. So like, Scully's personal involvement in the mythology is sort of like, it starts with her abduction, and then, her sister is killed. And then in season 3, you get Nisei, where she meets all the other, the women in the MUFON group, and like really starts to get into the reality of what happened to her, and how it's related to the conspiracy. And so yeah, I just love the whole, like, that whole movement from 2 to 3. It just gets really, really cool, really interesting. And because, Mulder is engaged from the beginning, because it started with his sister, and, Scully sort of gets pulled in, and this is where she really gets pulled in. And that's one of the things I really enjoy. And I don't know, I think, like, the mythology episodes, as far as like the ones I would choose to watch again and again, a lot of them are from season 3. And Syzygy, although I know it's not like necessarily that popular, actually is one of my favorites.
We watch that together a lot.
We do. I sort of, I like it when it's like really gross, when there's a lot of science, or when it's just like outright like wacky and like doesn't really make sense. Like, I enjoy that too. So I like Syzygy. And there's just like, there's very little like to dislike. Again, like the only like bad one people ever point to is like Tesoros Bichos, and I actually like don't really mind it much at all.
Except I can't watch that now because I have a cat now, and he goes nuts during the cast. So I have to mute that part.
I mean, if I was being hypercritical, maybe you could say a couple of them early on are a bit forgettable. I'm thinking like The Walk, but it's a season of 24 episodes. I think the hit rate is like really phenomenal generally.
The Walk is so memorable though, don't you think? That scene in the pool, I'll never forget that. That's The Walk.
That's
I think
terrifying,
isolated moments are.
Yes.
Yeah. That's The Walk, isn't it? And also that's the one with the boy in the sand pit, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's pretty.
Yeah.
pretty
So there are
memorable.
some memorable moments.
I just wanted to pick up on something, if it's all right, that Deana just said, because I really agree the way that Scully's drawn into the story here. And I think that's something that X-Files does so well, especially early on. Like, I know some of the critique, certainly from my friends who weren't into the show, was, it's just about aliens. It doesn't, it's not realistic. But what they did so well was that was just a front for exploring realistic character motivations, and Scully was invested because all this stuff had happened to her, and it didn't really matter what the stuff that was happening was. The fact was that she was reacting realistically to these traumatic experiences that pointed her towards these fantastical things that she started to believe in. So it was really good at that.
Yeah, I think the engagement of the characters and like the focus on the character part of it over the plot, over the quote unquote alien part, the characters are what keep people watching, I think.
Yeah.
I think this season really demonstrates that they can do that so well. When they do it well, they do it fantastically well.
Yeah. And something like Paperclip really does that brilliantly, doesn't it? In terms of they have the renewed purpose by the end of that episode, and it's shared.
And it's shared with the audience too, because that's our actual history. So they're sharing it all around.
Yeah, I don't think when I first saw some of these episodes, I don't think I'm sure that I did not pick up on like the idea that Paperclip was a real thing. And so like that's another thing that, like, getting older, I've enjoyed that, the season 2 and 3 mythology a lot more because of that, because I just know a little more and understand a little more. And yeah. And it's I think the human cost thing is another thing that comes up, that the human cost of the whole conspiracy. Like, the reason why, like what we were just talking about, the reason why it works, the alien thing works for both characters, because it doesn't matter if it's aliens or not. It's a conspiracy against like ordinary people. So Scully can be engaged in it and not think it's aliens, and Mulder can be engaged in it because he thinks it's aliens.
I think that's maybe quite a nice point to end on, unless anyone else has something they want to chip in. Kind of as I suspected, that I thought 9, 10, 11 would be relatively low on people's lists. I thought particularly season 3 would be high, and it has been. And we're all over the place in the middle, which is kind of what I expected. So I think it's been a good exercise. I don't know if people want to post their equations or methodologies in Facebook in the basement for other people to critique, possibly. And it'd be interesting, of course, to hear listeners tell us their own rankings if you want to leave us a message in the basement. But let's just wrap up then by doing some social media shout out. So, Katie, if people want to abuse you because of your choice of seasons, no, people shouldn't do that. But if they want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
We could have a lovely discourse. Mostly on Twitter, I talk X-Files when I'm actually posting. Designer Doe is my handle there. And also I try and hang out in the X-Files or XCast basement on Facebook. That's always a fun place. So yeah, maybe we'll post some numbers and see what people think.
Yeah. And Jessica, how about you?
I joined social media a year ago. So I could start talking about X-Files, but I really only ever react. I don't post much. I'm on Twitter at JT Miska, so JTMISKE, and I'm also in the basement. And I reckon we should make a poll with all our different rankings, and then people can tick with what they agree and don't agree.
I think that's a good idea. And Deana, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter. Deanut Butter, so it's peanut butter but with a D, all one word. And I don't tweet that much, but when I do, it's almost always about the X-Files.
Yeah.
So and yeah, I definitely check out the basement group. I don't say much, but I'm always reading it, so I will jump in now and then.
Okay, great. Thanks everybody. I've enjoyed this. I think it was a nice round table. I hope it's not been too confusing for people to listen to. Hopefully, all the different rankings haven't put people off, but I enjoyed it at least. I am at CKJ Sweeney on Twitter. The Xcast is at the X_cast. We're also on Facebook, as we talked about. We're also on Instagram. But that's it for this episode, everybody. Until next time, always remember, trust no one.
Elsewhere on We Made This.
The Way, a Star Wars podcast.
Well, trying to have him be like a stoic, kind of unflinching character. In the end, he just seems like he doesn't care or want anything.
Yeah, it goes back to what we've said in past episodes where they just feel too indifferent to their own stories.
Yeah.
For us to, I can't care for them.
Yeah.
I can't invest in a story more than the goddamn characters on the screen seem invested in the story, so give me something, guys.
Gotham University, a Batman podcast.
But you don't owe this planet a thing. And I thought that was a perfect speech to give a man who is so conflicted with his duality, between being an alien from another race that could wipe out the entire planet or be a man who just wants to live.
Exactly. Christopher Reeve was very much truth, justice, the American way. But Henry Cavill is much more about it's less the American way and much more about truth and much more about justice, which is more important than just the American way. Because the American way, back in the 60s and the 70s, that was then, but this is now. And we need a Superman for us.
Frame to frame.
So we mentioned it won an Academy Award for Best Makeup. It's the only Oscar won by a film that's been directed by David Cronenberg to date.
Pretty staggering.
I mean
that's amazing.
It's astounding. But
let me put it this way: Gwyneth Paltrow has as many Oscars as David Cronenberg. That's just wrong in every sense of the word.
But you can't get a candle that smells like David Cronenberg. No, wait, I'm not going to go there.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network. The Xcast and X-Files podcast was created by Tony Black and is produced and hosted by Carl Sweeney, Sarah Blair and Kurt North.
You can find the podcast on Twitter at the X_cast, on Facebook by typing in the Xcast, and in our group, X-Files Basement, the Xcast podcast fan group, and on Instagram at the Xcast pod.
Don't forget, you can support the show by becoming a member on Patreon. Our patrons get early access to episodes, behind-the-scenes chats with our hosts and a thriving community of X-Files, and other premium interviews and specials. To find out more and subscribe, you can go to patreon.com/thexcast. That's patreon.com/thexcast.
We are also part of the We Made This podcast network, full of popular culture shows, including our Millennium series, The Time Is Now. You can find all of our shows at our website, wemadethispod.com, or via Twitter at wemadethispod.
Thanks for listening, and keep watching the skies.